All right, so we'll get started, and as folks join, I hope it won't be too much of an inconvenience to hear that ding, Kathy, every couple of seconds.
No
Um,
problem.
but welcome everyone to the WordPress Santa Clarita Valley Meetup. My name's Joe Simpson. We've been doing this for maybe 6 or 7 years now. I'm excited because when I got into WordPress in sort of the fashion that I'm volunteering now, one of the first people that I saw present at a meetup in Los Angeles area in Pasadena was the person that's our guest today who's going to speak. And every time I see her at a WordCamp or something like that, it's always so exciting. She's got so much positive energy that I always enjoy being with her. So I'm excited that she's going to present to you today. With that, I'll start, Kathy, by asking how you want to handle this. Do you want to hold questions till the end, or do you want questions as you go, or what do you prefer? And then
You
I
guys
could
can
tee up
just,
your introduction.
yeah, just put questions in the chat. And, if I need to catch my breath, we'll stop for a second and I'll see if there's something that I need to answer, or we can do them at the end as well. And yeah, whatever. I'm easy.
Okay, so I'm going to make you host.
Okay.
And I'll start with the introduction, but let's do the bio first. Kathy is the director of marketing at KadenceWP and has been working with WordPress for well over a decade. She's been both technical and marketing. She has both technical and marketing experience and has worked in a number of brands in the WordPress space. She has also helped numerous organizations empower their businesses with WordPress. She's helped organize a couple of WordCamps, and she loves Phoenix WordCamp community like family. She currently lives in Denton, Texas, where she can often be found walking doggos and hanging out with farms. So today she's going to present Passwords Are Broken. Here's what's coming to us. I put the description in the meeting event notice, but I'll just give you a couple of paragraphs. Every day we learn about a new data breach that has exposed our private information, including usernames and passwords, to malicious attackers. As more and more breaches happen, including the breach that happened to LastPass last August, it's becoming increasingly evident that using traditional username password combos aren't working. With less than 30% of people actually using two-step authentication to protect their personal logins from being exploited, information security has an authentication problem. And this is so timely because I think just yesterday, I got one of those letters that we all dread, that your information has been breached and they're going to keep an eye on it. So this is it's still a topic that's very topical. So with that, I'm going to present Kathy Zant. Passwords Are Broken. Here's what's coming to save us. Take it away, Kathy.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joe. I'm going to share one of these screens. And we are going to dive right into it. All right. So passwords are broken. We've got plenty of evidence about that. And passkeys are coming to save us. And I'm going to show you what passkeys are. We're going to talk about some news with passkeys just over the past couple of days. And we're going to show you some demos of how passkeys work, as well as this new technology comes into use, which is just right at the cusp of becoming a little more mainstream. We're going to talk about some strategies to protect yourself with passwords as we're making this transition into this new world where we're relying more on public-private key encryption to secure our personal data rather than the name of your dog. So let's get started. All right. That's me, Kathy Zant. Actually, that's an AI picture of me. I found this tool that allows you to upload pictures of yourself, and then it spits out to you headshots. If you go to my blog at zant.com later, of course, but you can see some samples that it kicked out to me. It was the weirdest experience to see what AI thinks I look like, or who AI thinks I am.
What's the app that you use for that? What did you use?
It's called Try It On AI, and there's a link on it. I can pop that in the chat later, but it's on the blog post that I just published a couple days ago. But yeah, it was a trip. And that blog post also talks a little bit about, how AI is changing the way we think about everything, ourselves, our products, our services, And also, lots of fun stuff coming for WordPress with AI too. But that's a different talk. Still got to write it. But let's talk. I'm a security professional. I have been in security longer than I've been in WordPress, actually. I got into security in the 90s when I inherited a web server. My very first web job, I inherited a web server that got hacked. And so they sent me to security school and I learned how to hack back and clean up hack sites and all of that fun stuff. So I've been in security a really long time, but I really love WordPress. And I'm now focused on marketing more than anything else, with a focus on everything that Kadence is doing. And Kadence is a theme as well as suite of plugins, especially Kadence blocks, that helps you do so much more, so much easier with WordPress. But again, I digress. Let's talk about passwords. Hopefully this guy stays quiet during this entire presentation. This is my mini dachshund, Milo. And he just puts his feet up on my desk here and tells me that I'm working too much, like most pets do. But Milo wants to talk to us about our passwords. He would like you to think about passwords like you think about him, that they should be long and unique. So there's my dachshund password joke for the day. All passwords should be as unique as possible and also be long. But, you guys have probably been using all sorts of technology for years and years, and you've used everything as a password, right? You've used your pets, your kids, addresses, zip codes, weird names of your friends. Lots of us have that one password that we use all the time, everywhere. And then that one password ends up in a data breach, and we've got to have a new one password that we're using everywhere. We have to try to not do that, try to be as unique as possible. But we tend towards wanting to use a password that is unique to us, right? Something that nobody can ever guess, and something that's unique, that's just entirely ours. And that psychology of passwords worked really well in like the late 90s, when there weren't all of these breaches dumping our passwords onto the internet with hackers collecting them up. But this has been how passwords have worked. And we're at the stage right now where we're having problems. Passwords are now the thing that get fished away from us. They are things that are ending up in breaches and things that hackers are using all over the place to try to get into your accounts. So we're going to talk a little bit about where we're at with the state of passwords, and then some things that we can do in order to solve things. This is Sven, not to be outdone by Milo. He is our 7-toed cat, and he would like to talk about some common passwords, Sven123 being, of course, his favorite. And this is these passwords here come from NordPass in 2021. That's another one of the password managers that are out there. And they found that these were the most common passwords. So is there anybody here who's using password 123? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think I've got a few test sites that I don't care if they get hacked, that probably have just a chintzy password that I shouldn't be using. But lots of us use our pets, and we use things that are familiar to us and add a few numbers onto the end of it and hope that that is going to be secure. And sadly, Sven123, not a good password. Password databases. This is where things get really dicey. And if you go to GitHub and you do just a search for password dictionaries, you'll find a number of them. So what ends up happening is you get a site, maybe a small shoe site, and it's got enough customers that it's interesting, and a hacker gets in, compromises that site, takes all the usernames and all the passwords, and then they put it into a database. And then other hackers do the same. And then you get things like RockU 2021, which was the largest password compilation that we've ever seen, that was leaked online with 8.4 billion passwords in it. I think it pretty much illustrates the fact that our passwords are no longer the thing that are protecting us. They have been compromised. It's safe to assume that if you have a password that is less than 10 characters, it probably matches up to one of these password databases. There's one way that you can tell. You can go to Have I Been Pwned? And pwned is like, have I been owned? but it's have I been pwned? And that's kind of hacker speak. Like if you own a website, you've pwned it. And if you go to haveibeenpwned.com and you put in your email address, an email address that you've been using for a while, probably going to see that your password or that that email account has been in a breach at one point or another. You can also test your passwords there to see how strong they are or whether or not it has shown up into one of these breach databases. This site, Have I Been Pwned, is run by a security professional named Troy Hunt, very reputable. It's a very safe site. So if you want to test a password, but I always test a password, then change it because I'm super paranoid. I'm the one that's using like 3 different password managers and, you know, have crazy long, ridiculous passwords because I've seen some things. And I've seen that passwords just, they aren't what they used to be. We're making easy to remember passwords because we want to make life easier for us. We are reusing passwords because we want it to be something that we can just off the top of our head type in because we're standing in line at the bank and they need something out of our app and we have to type it in, and our password manager is asking us to like log in with that password and we have that at home and Face ID isn't working and we just want something that's easy. All of these things that are trying to protect our passwords are making things harder. And so there's this natural desire for people to move towards something that's going to be easy to log in. The problem is security is like this continuum. You want something to be usable, you won't move over to the easy side of things. And if you want something to be secure, you move over to the hard side of things. And users, for the most part, myself included, don't want to be on the hard side of things. I just want to get my work done. I don't want all of this trauma. So this is why people are choosing things like their pets and reusing passwords and choosing something that they can remember that they feel like nobody ever could guess. Unfortunately, according to Verizon, 81% of breaches, and this isn't specific to WordPress, this is breaches across large organizations, small organizations, 81% of them are because of stolen or weak passwords. Somebody gets phished and that password gets stolen, or a password is too weak and is in one of those databases. So there are definitely some problems with passwords. Even our password managers have some trauma. Let's see, got waiting room issues going on. Password manager woes. So in last August, LastPass, which was one of the major password managers, suffered a breach. Since that time, we have found out that we had a single developer who had access to all of the dev tools and everything that needed to stay super secure. That developer did not update some software on a home machine that had access to all of his work stuff because he was working remotely. So that one single intrusion vector led to the breach of many password vaults. So there's tons of information out there about what happened last August. Right before Christmas, we found out that it affected customer vaults. And as more and more people investigated what was going on, found out that LastPass was encrypting things like the password and the username, but they weren't encrypting things like the URL that people were storing in that password manager. So should that master password for that vault ever be discovered, triangulating in and figuring out how to get into accounts was a probability and a possibility. And it's just like a matter of time. Hopefully everybody's got strong master passwords. 2FA is not going to help with a situation like that. Norton LifeLock also had a breach. Dashlane, Bitwarden, Safari browser extension vulnerabilities. They found out that if you sandboxed a PayPal like a PayPal login form in an iframe on a website, that those browser extensions would autofill that particular sandboxed environment, and then that could be used with JavaScript to send usernames and passwords back to a malicious attacker. So those have been patched, but again, we're entrusting our passwords to password managers, and everybody's telling us this is the safe way to do things. And I'll testify that it is the safe way to do things, because we do need to take care of our passwords and make them extremely complex. But still, we're putting a lot of eggs into one basket, maybe two. And are these password managers going to be able to protect us? We also, because we know passwords are problematic, we are using things like two-factor authentication. So what this means is you put in your username, you put in your password, and the site or application comes back and says, please check your authenticator app, or we've just sent a code to your text SMS via SMS to your cell phone via text. Please put in that 6-digit code. Unfortunately, again, according to Verizon, only about 28% of users are actually using 2FA. Is everybody here using 2FA? Yeah, nobody wants to. I don't want to, and I've seen some things. It's problematic. Again, it's that security, weighing something that's secure versus usability, that spectrum. Where does that application fall? For your bank account, maybe you want to have 2FA on that. You want an extremely tight password. You want maybe even another method of authentication. You want that as secure as possible. My test sites, maybe I'm not using the most tightest security there, because if they get hacked, I'll just wipe them and get a new test site. Doesn't really matter. It's your security decisions are going to fall where you make a decision for every single site. So you wouldn't apply the same kind of security risk prevention to your bank account as you would to a test site. That would not be in your best interests, and vice versa. Sometimes test site, you just want to log in, get something done, see if something works. You want that workflow to be extremely easy. The problem is we have so many different things going on here, and users are stymied by two-factor authentication. They don't want to have to use it. So less than 30% of people are actually using it. Then we have the problem of SMS two-factor, which can be breached by SIM swapping attacks. And there's some stories online of people who wake up the next morning, their cell phone isn't working, and then they realize that their crypto account has been drained because they had SMS set up as a two-factor on their Gmail that's tied to their Coinbase account. And then all of a sudden a hacker takes over everything. And that SMS two-factor authentication was not enough to protect them. Another problem, authenticator apps. Now, this research was done earlier this year. I'm going to say February. MISC Inc., which is an app developer, but they also do security research, and they're hot on the trail. If you go to their Twitter account, they are writing all the time about authenticator apps and the problem that we have about rogue authenticator apps in App Store as well as Google Play Store. So there's a ton of them. The joke here is, would the real authenticator app please stand up? Because they all kind of look the same. Which one does a novice user choose? Which one are you going to tell your mom to choose when they have this many of them showing up when they search for authenticator? And you're trying to help people be more secure and use two-factor authentication, which nobody really wants to use anyway. And then we have the problem of rogue authenticator apps. One of these has over 500,000 users, and it's phoning home data. Others are charging $40 a month for authenticator codes. Now, obviously, this is probably a problem for the App Store and the Play Store to figure out. But as people working in tech, I know each one of you gets asked all the time, like just by your friends and family, what do I do about securing my digital accounts? What do I do? What is this two-factor authentication that you speak of? What do I do about this? Okay, I've got an authenticator app, and then you look at it and it's like some funky company in Taiwan that doesn't really have the user best at heart. Not to pick on people in Taiwan, I'm just throwing something out there. Someone that you don't know, they're not using Google Authenticator. They're not using one of the major password or security companies' apps. And this is a problem that exists in the App Store. So something to definitely look at. So our passwords, they have problems. All of these passwords that get collected are used in brute force attacks. They're used in phishing, or passwords are collected in phishing attacks. So somebody gets an email unbeknownst to them. I just consulted with someone who they have like a very large Instagram following, something that's really important to them, and they were going for the Instagram blue check mark. And this guy who's got a very successful business, his wife helps manage things, and his wife got phished. And they were going for this blue check mark, and the phish came in saying, we know you want the blue check mark, but you need to fill out this form. And one of the fields was their Instagram password. And because it contextually all made sense, the wife put in that password and their Instagram account got hacked. They found out later that they were reusing passwords everywhere, so they lost their email access as well. And it took a lot of work for them to recover all of this. When I was consulting with them, I said, well, what password manager are you using? Well, we kind of need some recommendations on what to do. They weren't using a password manager. They didn't have good security practices, and they got phished. And one of their most important assets to that particular business got compromised because they didn't have good security practices in place. And it's passwords, and passwords have problems. Obviously, we have issues with 2FA. We've talked about that. And password managers, I still know people who don't trust putting all of those eggs in one basket. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. Authentication basics. So how does a website or an application know you are who you say you are? There are three main ways. It's something you know, like a password, something you have like biometric or one of those card keys when you're trying to get into a building, and then something that you are, which is all of your biometrics, your face ID, fingerprints, retina scans, things like that. So those are the three primary ways that a web service or an application are going to authenticate you. Passwords, whether that's the code you need to type in your phone, face ID, your fingerprint, all of these things are used in concert to authenticate you to say you are who you say you are. We have a new technology, although it's not really new. It's based on something that's actually kind of old. It's called WebAuthn. And WebAuthn is basically short for the Web Authentication API. And it's developed by the W3C. Those are the people who kind of maintain the standards for HTML, and FIDO, which is an organization that's trying to improve identity, fast identity online is basically what FIDO stands for. And they're trying to solve this problem of authentication. So basically what WebAuthn is a standard that allows for better authentication. And with passkeys, we have the implementation of WebAuthn for web authentication. So it allows servers to register and authenticate users using public key cryptography instead of passwords. So public key cryptography, we'll talk about that on the next slide a little bit, but it's basically been around for a really long time, very secure. And this implementation is taking public key cryptography and making it super simple so that eventually mom's going to be able to use it. Your kids are going to be able to use it. And in 10 years, we're going to look back and say, oh my gosh, we were using passwords. That was crazy. Now, passkeys are supported on all of the major browsers, Chrome, Firefox, Edge, Safari. And I'm going to show you a little demo of how it works in just a bit. But let's talk a little bit about public key cryptography and what it actually is. So public key cryptography is basically a public key and a private key, and you get those to match up, and that is the authentication. We'll talk about how it works with passkeys in a second, but you're using it now, most likely in some way or another. If you're visiting sites that use SSL, HTTPS, if you secure socket layers, that uses public-private key cryptography. Say that 10 times fast. TLS, when you're logging in via FTP and it's telling you that it's making a TLS connection, that is public-private key encryption, encrypting from what's happening on the browser to what's happening in your FTP client to what's happening on the server. SSL, same thing, but in a browser. SSH, if you have ever had to log in on the terminal, SSH, and you use a key to do that, that is public-private key cryptography. PGP, if you've ever sent a mail message and you've gone onto someone's website and you find their public key, you can use their public key to send them a message, and their private key that they hold and keep to themselves is the thing that decrypts that, because the public-private key match up. That encryption, those two things can talk to each other. Now, if you find somebody's public key, if you don't have the private key, that public key is pretty much useless. So public key, private key cryptography, it's been around a long time and it has stood this test of time. Bitcoin, I'm sure you've heard of that. I'm hoping Uncle Bitcoin recovers soon. I'm hoping that he leaves me a nice retirement package. But Bitcoin also uses public-private key cryptography. So this is an implementation everywhere. And if we can use this that is time tested and has been used everywhere, and we're using it for our basic web authentication for our websites, logging into WordPress, it's going to make everybody much more secure, and it's going to challenge our little script kiddie hackers to try to do something else, to try to break into everything. So just an overview of how this works. So I've got a little icons here. The phone kind of is your browser, and then we've got the server on the other side. So how it happens, our browser says to the web server, I want to register an account. And so the server says, send the public key. The private key stays on that browser. So the public key goes to the server. So that server holds that public key. And the browser is the thing that is creating that key pair. So it sends that public key up to the server, and then you're registered. You have an account. So instead of your password being stored on that server, your public key is stored on that server. And as I said before, those public keys, useless to hackers. So if that server that you have that registered passkey with ever gets hacked and somebody gets all of those public keys for every user account, useless until they can hack into every single browser that every single user has. Then maybe it gets interesting, but the probability of that happening is pretty low. All right. I am going to stop sharing right here, and I'm going to share, we are going to do some demos, but I'm going to check in and see if we have some questions. Let's see. All right. Are consecutive numbers bad in password strings?
And I guess, I mean, you showed the 1, 2, 3 example. That's consecutive numbers. Like, should you have a letter and a number, or does it matter? Or
it's going to be anything in a dictionary, anything that, there's just the bad password lists, anything in any of those databases are going to be problematic, because those are the things that hackers have, right? So they have this database, basically a text file, a CSV file, however they're going to put it into something that a script can loop into. And so they're going to target XYZ website, xyz.com, let's say, and they're going to take their script that has a login routine, and then they're going to try password 1, password 2. That was how a brute force attack happens. So if it's in one of those databases, it could be the most complex password in the world, but if it's in one of those databases, it's no longer safe. So consecutive numbers, does it even, if it's in that one of those databases, it could be extremely complex and still be unsafe. Yes, Steve?
What about, you said CSV files. What about, I heard something recently, or read something recently about adding commas to your password, because if it goes into a CSV file, it would break it up into separate cells. Have you heard anything about that? Is there any truth to that? I mean, I don't really do it. I use 1Password to just generate some crazy password, so I don't really check. But
it depends on the script, really. Are they sanitizing? Do hackers sanitize their scripts?
I don't
Probably
know.
most of them don't, but I wouldn't rely on that as a security mechanism. But yeah, they're probably, yeah, you know, after cleaning 2,000 to 3,000 hacked sites and all of the stuff that I saw when I was doing that kind of work, it's most of the attacks that happen against WordPress for the most part are pretty low level. So if you do like low level types of things, you're probably going to be okay, but I wouldn't count on it. It's not like a fail safe way of
Right. So you would say there's a whole lot of weight to that statement that I read.
Nah.
Yeah. I don't put much weight. I didn't do it. So, okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah. I don't know, AJ, if password managers provide any guarantees. Things that I've seen are, oh, we'll buy you identity protection online, that kind of stuff, but I haven't really seen any kind of guarantee that they're going to like pay you X amount of dollars because you got hacked because of their poor security practices. Random authenticators make you uneasy. They should, because there are so many of those. You saw what Misk had found out in the Google Play Store and in the iOS App Store as well. I am using a number of different authenticators. I use Google Authenticator because it's just there and easy. I just know that every time I get a new phone, I'm gonna have to set everything up again. But you know, there's some password managers that allow you to do the 2FA within the password manager too. Let's see, there's a bunch of different ones. Each one of them has, you know, their own concerns. Google Authenticator just added the capability of being able to store those, because there's like a seed in there that basically has all of the information. The seed is the thing that you have to protect. And they're storing those seeds now so that if you get a new phone, you can just like reconnect everything and all of your 2FA codes are still there. But, you know, security experts are like, why should you be storing anything? So it just underscores how broken passwords are right now. Let's see. And Doug says, I've been testing passwordless login provided by one of my WordPress security measures, but interested in what passwordless login systems I am recommending. Okay. Let's see, for one of, you're probably using iTheme security. I'm going to demo that because that's how I learned about passkeys. Timothy Jacobs over at iThemes is extremely, okay. Yeah, he's so smart, such a smart and just a hugely wonderful human being. I'm going to make sure I have my windows open so that I can do a quickie demo here for you. And I'm going to show you, I'll show you how iTheme security works as well. We're going to set up a passkey and we're going to show you how it works. Okay. So this is the WebAuthn Everything You Wanted to Know website, webauthn.io. And there's guides. There are libraries. So if you're a developer and you're looking to implement passkeys on one of your projects, there are all kinds of guides and information that allow you to get started. But we're going to just use this particular, I have okay, I'm going to set up another one. Let's see. We're going to use one for Sally passkey. And we are going to register this passkey. And we are going to say, we're going to use this device. And continue. And now I'm going to use my fingerprint or the fingerprint sensor on my computer. And now I'm going to authenticate with that Sally passkey. I'm using Chrome here for this particular implementation. Continue. It's asking me for my fingerprint. And there you go. That's basically how it works. So my browser is the thing that's doing all of the work. And down here, it's showing you the credentials for Sally's passkey that are in the browser here. And this says its credentials are only stored for 24 hours. This, of course, is a test site to basically just prototype how this works. I'm going to show you now how, let's see, that is what's next in my particular presentation. Yes, I will rave about Timothy later. We will show you how it works for a website. This is one of my test sites. And we are going to set up a user for this particular site. I'm going to add a new user. And let's see, this will be set. Well, let's set it for Sven. And so we have Sven, and email. We'll just do Sven at iThemes. Let's do that. Okay. And we have our password. I am just going to copy that, and we are going to set him up as an editor. Well, let's do admin. Let's see. I think I have that, because iThemes allows you to basically say, okay, administrators use passkeys and everybody else is using passwords, or use passkeys for everyone. Has all kinds of settings. I'm pretty sure I just have this set up for administrators. So we're going to add that new user, and I think I copied his password. And I'm going to log Sally out. And to just log in again, because I've got Sally's passkey here, I'm going to log in with a password. And so Sally's also set up with a password as well as a passkey for this particular test site. And so we're going to log in as Sven, and it is going to prompt me, I think, to set up a passkey. So it's saying set up passkey login. And I am going to add a passkey here. And I'm going to use this particular device for Sven. I'm going to continue here. All right. And then you can name the passkey. And we're going to complete that registration. So now that passkey is set up for Sven. And now we can log in with the passkey. And we are going to be specific and say we want to use Sven's passkey. I am going to continue here, do my biometrics for my Chrome browser, and boom. Now Sven is logged in for Sally's awesome possum cat blog. So that's basically how the passkey works when using iThemes security for a WordPress site. And you can set up, I'm not going to go through a whole tour of what iThemes security does, but that basically gives you an idea of how that works. You're basically coming in, setting up an account, and then setting up that passkey, and then you can use that passkey. iThemes security has the methodology where you can say, okay, make everybody use passwordless logins. Don't let them use their passwords. So that way, those passwords just won't work. So you can set it up so that people are only using their passkeys, or they're only using this application. This plugin also allows you to do email. So you can send an email to someone with a token where they can just click that and able to then log in. Before I head on, I want to also highlight something that happened just 2 days ago, where Google put out a blog post letting us know that passkeys are now available for our Google accounts. And if you can go to this, I will put this in the chat actually, if I can. Where is chat? There we are. And we'll put that link there so you can take a look at that at your convenience. This basically talks about what passkeys are, but if you go down here, you can try them out at g.co/passkeys. And I am not sure, this is my Kadence account, so I am not going to show you how that gets set up, but it's super easy, very easy to use. You'll have to put in your password, verify that it's you, and then it sets up the passkey, much like what we saw with WebAuthn, what we saw with Sally's Possum Cat blog, works much in the same way. So very easy, very, very easy to get set up. All right, let's go back to the presentation. And it's this guy, Timothy. Timothy is the lead developer at iThemes Security. He is the person that taught me about passkeys. I'm like, oh, that's how I'm logging into Apple now. And yeah, that's exactly how you're logging into Apple now. So Timothy is the one that brought passkeys to iThemes Security. He is the one that advocated for it. And he is the one that deserves all of the credit there. And moving on, passkeys aren't everywhere, right? Passkeys are only available in a few places. Google just released passkeys 2 days ago, just in time for World Password Day, which was yesterday. So passkeys are not yet available, but as you see them come online, whether it's with PayPal or Dropbox or Stripe is using passkeys, you can set passkeys up as your second factor of authentication. You're still logging in with the username and password, but you use a passkey as a way of having a two-factor authentication, which I think is just brilliant. That's really wonderful. Wherever you're able to use passkeys, start using them, because this is the new way of authentication. This is the new way of keeping yourself safe. I've got another cat. This is Buggy / Lunabug. She's got a ton of different names, and she is not passwordable because she has too many different names, but we got to include her. She's the old cat. She's put up with a lot with the 2 dogs and Sven. Everybody puts up with Sven. So some other things to really think about as we are moving towards passkeys. We want to make sure that we're still using complex and unique passwords, and we want to make sure that we're using a reputable 2FA application, whether that's Google Authenticator or something else. We want to make sure we're using reputable password managers. I am going to throw out a couple of names here. 1Password is great because not only do they have your master password, which only you know, but they also have another factor, which is a secret key that you basically print out and put away in a safe somewhere in order to keep everything secure. And 1Password has teams. It's more expensive, but it's going to keep things more secure. They've never had a breach. Bitwarden, if you're on the budget side of things, Bitwarden is open source. And of course, being in the WordPress space, we know that it is important to have all of our source code reviewed by everyone so that security researchers can find problems and get them fixed. Bitwarden's like $10 a year. The free version has a ton of things available in it, and it's definitely something great to use. I'm going to tell you about a strategy now. If you're using password managers, this is the blind password storage strategy. So this is what you do. If you are concerned about using password managers and you think that password managers are scary and that they're going to get hacked and you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, here's a way of using a password manager to create very complex passwords, but not having all of your eggs in one basket with one of these password managers. And that is the blind password storage strategy. So you have Bitwarden or 1Password, you have them create a very long and complex 16-character password. And that is the password that you store in your password manager. Now you go to the site and you take that, you copy and you paste it in, but you add in 4 digits that you keep in your head and you don't have typed anywhere on your computer or anywhere associated with a password, but you append it to the end of the password that's generated by Bitwarden or by 1Password. And in that way, that password is completely unique. That's in this site that might get hacked someday. And it's completely unique within your password manager. And then that 4-digit code is in your head. So if your password manager is ever compromised and they get all of your passwords, they're useless without that 4-digit code or string of letters or word or whatever you'd like it to be. And anything that's entered into a site that might be compromised is also not useful. So in that way, you have a strategy. So 4-digit code, we can all remember that, right? All right. I will make all these slides available. I'll probably tweet them out or something like that, or maybe I can put them in the chat here as well. But there are some developer resources that if you are creating applications and you want to offer password or passkeys as a part of that particular application, then there are tons of resources. WebAuthn.io, WebAuthn.guide, tons of documentation. And if you just go do a search on GitHub, there's a bunch of information there about passkeys. And of course, Google, Apple, and all of the major players in the tech space, they are also offering tons of information as well, so that you can you can start implementing passkeys in your project. And that's all I got for you guys. You can follow me. Oh, this is my slide deck from WordCamp Phoenix, where I was representing Kadence. Because even though I am still the security geek, I am still repping Kadence. Kadence is such a fun project to work on. So, but yeah, you can find me, Kathy Zant, everywhere. So that's what I got. Do we have any more questions that I can answer for you? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. I need to step away for just 1 second, and I will be back in 1 second.
Okay. So if you have any questions or thoughts on the presentation, when she comes back, we'll get to those.
Okay, I am sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, there was a basic question that I had, and I thought I saw Bitwarden in your list of security companies that were compromised, but it sounded like you mentioned using Bitwarden for the passkey thing. Is that something that we need to differentiate, or is there an issue? Or
Yeah, so what happened with Bitwarden was the browser extension. So there's browser extensions for a lot of these password managers so that you can autofill. So you go to your website and say you're going to PayPal and you've got your browser extension, which is hooked into your password manager, and it will autofill your username and your password. I don't use that because of one, that vulnerability that was found where basically they put together a website, made an iframe sandbox look like it was PayPal. And so that browser extension was like, oh, here's the username and password. And so that was autofilling, and that exposed it to a malicious site. So I typically do not use those browser extensions. Also I'm using a lot of blind passwords, so that doesn't really help me, right? So I'm doing the extra work of copying and pasting, but that was where the vulnerability was with Bitwarden's browser extension, where it was able to, it also actually affected Safari. So there's something in Safari that allows you to store your passwords within the browser. And that was also autofilling into a site that wasn't necessarily PayPal. Might have looked like PayPal. They might have tricked it with some sandbox information, but it was a malicious site and it was autofilling. So that was the distinction there. I still think Bitwarden is a great password manager because it is open source. And that means security researchers can look at that source and determine whether or not there are security vulnerabilities in it. You know, obviously we see that with WordPress, open source security community, looking at the source code of all of these plugins and themes. iThemes and some of the other security companies put out lists all the time of vulnerabilities that have been patched. And WordPress is getting safer all the time because of that open source security research community.
I know in your presentation also you mentioned how low the two-step authentication numbers are.
Yeah.
So with your presentation, what would you say is, I guess passkeys are your first choice. If someone still wants to do the two-step authentication, would you talk them out of it versus the other, or is that something only to use in an emergency, or do you want to deter people from using it at all?
You should be using two-factor authentication, even if it's only SMS based. There are risks associated with it, but unless, like the one story of the guy who lost all of his crypto because of SMS two-factor authentication, he was targeted. They went to the I think it was one of the cell phone providers that somebody pretended to be him, went to the store and got a new device with a new SIM card. He was targeted. He wrote about crypto a lot. People, malicious attackers knew that he had crypto, so he was targeted. The probability of that happening to someone is fairly low. If it's still a risk, but the bigger risk is one of your passwords being one of these breaches, one of these password databases that end up online. And being used in that way. So if you have the ability to use two-factor, even if it's not the best method of using two-factor, it's still the best way to go at this point if you have to use a password and passkeys aren't available. See, passkeys are coming in to solve all of these problems, to solve the problems of two-factor authentication, to solve the problems of passwords, because we keep trying to put things on passwords and try to make passwords okay. And we're doing all of these dances to try to make passwords okay. But the main problem is passwords aren't okay. Passwords are broken. Passwords are not working for us. And so this new technology that's coming in with passkeys is taking public-private key encryption, something that technologists have used for years and years, and bringing it so that mom can use it, so that dad can use it, so that our kids can use it, so that the next generation grows up not having to use passwords and not having to go through all of this machination and try to make passwords okay.
Any other questions out? And I had another, but I didn't want to monopolize the conversation.
Sure. It looks like AJ has a question, recommendations on small business developer for websites. I would go into the Kadence community on Facebook because I get that question a lot. And then they all come out of the woodwork. Anybody who's got some free time, free cycles to build out a website, they are there. And I highly recommend Kadence or any of the new block tools as the way to go for website building these days. I'm seeing some really gorgeous designs being created and really fast and accessible websites being created. So the Kadence community, let's see, I can probably get you a link very quickly. It's really an active group. There's tons of stuff going on in there all the time. So let me put that into the chat as well.
Yeah, I met Ben at WordCamp US back in 2018, and he was one of our first guests at our meetup, which was kind of awesome. It's cool to see the company come this far. And he was on the leading edge of all the block stuff, which is kind of cool.
He released Kadence blocks before Gutenberg was ever a part of Core. Like, to be that visionary, and plus the fact he's just one of the best people. He's got so much integrity, really takes care of people, really listens to his community as well. So he's a great guy. I'm blessed to be working with him.
And then I guess we can wrap it up if we don't have any other questions. I do have one final, and it's related, but not, I know there's some folks that feel like there's some privacy issues with Google. So with the release of their new passkey feature, are there concerns that they'll have even more of your private information at their disposal, and that they may use it, or it may be breached in some other way because they share so much of our private information anyway?
Sure. Okay, so the passkey feature that they just released is if you have like a Gmail account, if you have a YouTube account, any kind of Google associated account. Basically, they're releasing the technology that allows you to do that kind of public-private key encryption with them. So all you're giving them is that public key that is useless if there's no if the private key isn't presented, right? So you're giving them something that it's useless. It's the same thing you would give to like a small shoe site or Sally's cat blog. So that public key is just something you could publish that public key on a website and it's still useless. It's not like a password. So actually you'll be giving them less by giving them a passkey.
Okay.
Now, how you store those passkeys, how you store those private keys, now that is an issue too. So I'm using Chrome for that demo. If I was really concerned with Google, I probably wouldn't be using Chrome, but all of the major browsers are offering passkey support. So if you wanted to use Brave or Opera or Firefox as your browser accessing Google services, you could log in that way and still protect all of your data as much as you can by using a non-Chrome browser. And then you're just handing over a passkey, a public key that's useless without the private key. And the private key then would be stored in Firefox. It would be stored in the encryption methodology that is native to that particular browser. And now there's other services, like if you're using Apple and you're using Safari, for example, Apple, and you're deep into that ecosystem, you have an iPhone and you have Safari as your browser and an iPad, and you're logging into a service with a passkey. Apple has a way of storing that in iCloud. So you can use your passkey within iCloud. You can use it on your phone. So you log in using Safari. You can log in on your phone using that passkey that is stored, the private key that's stored in your iCloud. So again, you're trusting big tech for this. I know that there are some password managers. NordPass is one, and NordPass is another really great password manager. They do the NordVPN, but they also have a password manager. They are going to start, I don't know if they have it out yet, but you can store your passkeys, those private keys, in a password manager. So like, let's say you have your Windows device and you have a Mac device and Linux or whatever, and you have NordPass on all of those things, you can store your passkey there. And then it doesn't matter what ecosystem you're in, you're then storing the private keys within NordPass. So then it makes it a little more portable, if that's of interest to anyone.
Cool. We have Sue has her hand up. Go ahead and ask your question, Sue.
Well, I have probably a real basic question, but I'd like to know how it fits in. So I use a Mac, and when I save, and I log into an account, I save the password in the little white box that pops up. Is that an extension, or is that an Apple thing? And should I not be doing that? So it goes out to your keychain to save it, I think.
Right. So Google or Apple's has the keychain, and that's where all the passkeys are stored, as well as your passwords. So I think it just in Ventura now they have that keychain where everything's being stored. I have always been nervous about storing things in my browser, because what happens if I download a malicious extension by accident, and now I have this malicious extension in my browser? Is that able to access all of those things? With the advent of the keychain, that's all being stored in a different way. And I believe from everything that I've seen, that's being stored in a much more encrypted way. So things are more protected. But you'd have to be really targeted for this to be a problem. As long as you're keeping your computer up to date, you have good antivirus, and you're just like watching yourself and doing all of like the good security hygiene types of things, you're probably not going to have a problem. But again, my test sites store those passwords in the browser all the time. My bank, I never do that. I don't do that at all.
Right.
Those are stored in a password manager. I've got blind password management on that. So those types of things, I treat things differently based upon how secure I need them to be, because I'm trying to make some things super easy to get into, and other things I don't want it to be easy even for me to get into, because I have money in there and I have things that are valuable in there, or I have a client site that if they get hacked, I don't want to have to send out an email saying that their customers' personally identifiable information has been breached, and have to deal with all of these privacy laws. So spectrum, where does the services that you're working with, where do they fall on that spectrum?
And it seems like everyone does the browser saving thing with their passwords. Yeah.
It's
Again,
easy.
it's so easy. Thank you.
No problem.
All right. Anything else? Thanks for an hour of your time. Or like I said, I really appreciate it, Kathy. I can't wait to see you again. We'd like as the community to thank you for stopping by today.
Yeah, no, this is great. Thank you for showing up, and go try a passkey. If you have a Google account, it's there. It's so exciting to me to see some real changes happening in how we're doing things, because I'm tired of seeing. I have seen so many. I would say of the 2,000 to 3,000 sites that I've cleaned, I'd say the majority of them that got hacked were because of poor password management, or poor, just bad decisions with credentials. Some of the worst ones were reused passwords. So to see a technology come along, I'm going to advocate for it as much as possible. So, passkeys.
All right. I'm going to get a shirt for it.
Sounds amazing.
All right. Thank you so much, Kathy.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Joe.
All right, so we'll wrap it up here. I hope everyone enjoyed the presentation today. Like I mentioned, I'm going to try to do more block-based stuff, but when there's interesting topics that I come across, I'll try to share them with the group. All right. If there isn't anything else, we're going to do another meetup next week, and this one is in the accessibility space. It's more of an entertaining topic about captions. It's on the Meetup page. Also, WordCamp US, they began selling tickets. Their call for speakers are open. It's going to be in near Washington, D.C. and National Harbor. So check that out if you're going to think of attending. And I think this weekend, WordCamp Buffalo is happening. So there's a couple of places where you can get some WordPress this weekend if you're interested. All right. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up. Enjoy your weekend, folks. Thanks for stopping by on a Friday. We generally do our meetups on Saturday, so this was a nice change of pace. Thanks, folks. Oh, by the way, Steve, they're going to release them in rounds. So I think the next round is going to be in 2 weeks. And I think they'll tweet about it in advance also. All right, so we'll see you guys. Take care.
Thank you.